Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 14th, 2020 Warwick School Committee meeting. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-05, issued by the Governor of the State of Rhode Island, the meeting will be conducted by electronic communications only. Members of the public wishing to access this meeting may do so at https://YOUTU:/BHB/BHB/TLBL3GJE. At this time, I call the meeting to order. At this time, we vote to go into closed session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business from which open meetings, those items of business that are exempt from open meetings under general laws of Rhode Island, 42-46(5), A1, A2, A4, A8, and A9.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Just any individuals to be discussed have already been notified.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kathy, we're going to leave this one and we're going to go into the exec one, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I technically can't leave the meeting. I can stop my video though. Okay.
Bonang, are we live?
Yes, we are. Kim has to take down the shared screen. So here we are.
The other should be in any minute now. Who are we missing? So waiting on Jen. Nathan.
Jen Connolly's here via phone.
Hi, yes.
Ethan. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Karen. How are
I'm
you?
here too. Hi, this is Wendy. I lost internet with the storm today, so I have to call in. I apologize.
Nathan here? No.
I got a notification that he went back to executive, so I just texted him. Hello, Nathan.
Hello. Had some computer internet trouble again.
I'm sorry. If Nathan, I noticed with somebody else that when they turned off their video, when they were speaking, they came across clearer. I don't know if that would be the case for you, but that was one little trick I saw that somebody did.
Yeah, I should try that. Yeah.
It makes it difficult because we love to see you.
I think you just need better internet.
Yeah.
So at this time, we call the meeting back to order and return to open session. Please stand for the pledge. Kyle, will you lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This time, I make a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
So moved.
All in favor?
Need a second.
Oh, second.
Second.
Hi.
Aye.
In favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. There were no votes taken in executive session. Public comment, Ms. Bonang, do we have any public comment this evening?
Yes, we do. We don't have too many, but we do have some. And I don't know, Andrew, I also had one that I thought was a little inappropriate, so I don't plan on sharing one, but I will send it to the committee. It was via it was a screenshot of a text message. So I can share that with the committee at another time.
I would agree with that, Kathy. I got the same one.
Yeah. I have one from that person that's okay, but that one I thought was very inappropriate.
Okay.
So this was titled Transportation or Lack Thereof. My name is Cheryl Adesi and my son is going into his junior year at Tollgate. I am writing regarding the vote to eliminate transportation. I just want to put Warwick Public Schools on notice that if there are no buses, he will not be going to school. Due to our work schedules, we have no way to get him to and from school. In addition, I feel that it is just not safe to pack our kids and staff into the cramped, closed buildings at this time and think we should be continuing distance learning. Please take the health and welfare of our kids and our teachers into consideration. Thank you. She then sent another email that said, this is an addendum to my prior email. I ask that you take this into consideration regarding next school year. 3 Arizona teachers who shared a classroom got coronavirus. One of them died. My next one is from Antonio Greeley, who is an elementary music teacher at Hoxie and Scott School. It says, good evening, members of the Warwick School Committee. With the start of the new school year, not much more than a month away, many questions regarding student and teacher safety, as well as educational practices, still remain unanswered. Below is a list of questions that I ask you to please consider in the course of your planning and to please answer if these concerns have already been resolved. Thank you. If a student tests positive, will teachers, students in contact with that student need to be quarantined? If so, would the teachers lose 14 sick days? How will immune-compromised teachers or students be affected, protected? Will teachers be required to lose sick days if they test positive? How will social distancing work in classrooms with more than 10 to 15 students? If a teacher's own child needs to quarantine, will the educated parent be required to use their sick days? Will state attendance laws be modified so student families do not feel compelled to come to school sick? Will families sign a waiver protecting teachers in the event a student gets sick while in their class? What happens in buildings and rooms with no AC and no windows to open? What happens to fire evacuation active shooter drills? State guidelines recommend keeping doors propped open. Will COVID precautions overrule active shooter precautions? If teachers have children in other districts that choose different models of school with split sessions, etc., how would that be handled? What about classes, grade levels that require close contact and collaboration for content and social emotional development? What safety measures will be put in place for staff, such as school counselors, whose offices are not large enough for social distancing? For teachers who are asthmatic and have an office classroom with no windows and poor ventilation, wearing a mask all day will be impossible. What options will there be for those teachers to maintain full-time status? Will teachers be provided with the necessary PPE? What if a teacher or assistant needs to use crisis prevention intervention with a student? What about teachers, staff, or students in behavioral rooms? If students are allowed the options to stay home, can teachers who are compromised or live with someone compromised also opt to teach from home? If students are required to wear a mask in retail stores, regardless of social distancing, why are schools different? How will teachers' TA health be protected if students do not have a mask? What will the protocol for pre-K and special educators who provide playtime and toilet training? How will teacher evaluations be handled? If a student is not wearing a mask, then will the teacher help that student from a 6-foot distance, as otherwise the teacher will be put at risk? Will face shields be an acceptable face covering for students and staff? Many teachers travel between schools. How will this be handled? How will events like open house and parent-teacher conferences be handled? What about specialists who teach every child in the school or multiple schools? How can they safely teach hundreds of students each week? If teachers are in class instructing students all day, who is responsible for online instruction for the students whose parents choose to keep them home? What will be done for older buildings without air conditioning on hot, humid days and with old radiators that blast dry heat in the winter to accommodate those students and faculty members who are trying to breathe through a mask? What will happen with students who are sent to the nurse with fevers or other COVID-19 symptoms? How is the sharing, cleaning of shared resources being handled? Technology, books, pencil sharpeners, art supplies, etc. How do art music teachers share supplies? Will schools be hiring more school nurses, custodial staff, and counselors? Will there be specialized training for staff to prepare before the first day of school for all these changes? How will grading work, especially if some students remain at home? Will staff bathrooms be cleaned regularly throughout the day? Will bathrooms have monitors to ensure only X amount of children enter at a time? Will there be a nurse in the building every day? If students are allowed the option to stay home, can teachers who are compromised or live with someone compromised also opt to teach from home? If a student in our class test positive will be told. This is a quote from the state restart plan. Staff roles will also have to expand to accommodate new health and safety regulations. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does this quote mean? Instructional and non-instructional staff schedules may also include designated time to support school building logistics required to maintain health and safety protocols. And lastly, this is from Tanios Buramia. If you haven't already seen this, please take the 5 to 7 minutes to read through this statement on approaches to teaching in the fall from a fellow educator. I believe he has covered many of the major issues that I, as a parent of 2 children with IEPs entering 1st and 2nd grade, have. It's at medium.com. I know that some of these elements are beyond your control, but I hope that all of them are part of the dialogue that's happening so that we can start the new school year duly prepared for the challenges ahead. Thank you for your service to the community. That's all I have.
Thank you. There is no correspondence or donation announcements this month. So we'll move on to recommended actions. Approval of minutes of public session for May 12th, 2020.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. June 9th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. June 24th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And July 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Wait a minute. No. Approval of warrants, July 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Announcements, personnel as presented. Ms. Ruggieri?
Tonight we have 4 retirements. We have Elaine Pickering, who's a night custodian at Veterans Middle School. She's been with us for 22 years. We have Linda Gavitt, who's a teacher assistant at Windman Middle School. She's been with us for 17 years. Lee Stites, who's a science teacher at Tollgate High School. She has 33 years, 32 with Warwick and 1 in the state. And finally, we have Nancy Fountain, an elementary teacher at Warwick Net with 23 years with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ms. Ruggieri. All in favor?
Is there
So
Move
moved.
approval. Move approval.
second?
Second.
Well,
Aye.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
That's a gray hair moment. Thank you. Leave of absences,
We have none tonight.
appointments and assignments, administration, middle management.
For administration, we have Jeff Mueller for Director of Technology, and effective upon approval.
Hey, Madam Chair, if I could just add to that, Dr. Taylor brings with us some new experience as a recently minted doctorate in technology, curriculum instruction and assessment. So he's a welcome addition to the Warwick team.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would add, per the policy and process in Warwick, as I've appointed, I would now to the committee to act on a contract for Dr. Taylor.
Thank you very much. We'll be done. Professional appointments or assignments?
Okay, we have several
Matt-
professional appointments.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you have to make a vote on that contract issue for the director.
Okay. Well, the contract hasn't been settled yet.
I think he means like what the offer is.
I think someone needs to make a vote to
I make a motion that we hire Jeff Taylor and that his base pay be $117,000 a year
For a two-year
Second.
term, I believe.
for a 2-year term and benefits. And
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, just discussion?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, there was no discussion, yeah.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'll support, I will support this. Largely on the recommendation of the administrators in the room during the interview process. So I think that, you know, we're going into a school year that, as I mentioned before, is unprecedented in scope of technology and demands of technology. I think what we're going to see for the next year from a technological perspective is going to make what we went through with from March to the end of the year with schools being closed look like child's play. It's a mountainous problem or issue that we're all going to have to climb, and we need technology. We need an appropriately staffed technology department to make this happen. So, and I would approve it. I would just, going forward during our interview process, as we mentioned before, I would just like to make sure that interviews are done primarily or solely by administrators, and other people. No one else should be in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Testa. Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion.
We need to vote on this
One
motion, or
motion,
there needs
yeah.
to be an amendment.
Okay,
How should she do that?
If you'd like to make an amendment to the current motion, Ms. Cobden, now would be the time.
okay, I'd like to make an amendment to the salary being 115,000.
So we need a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion on the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment, Ms. Cobden.
I'm not against the candidate at all. I just think the person leaving was making 117 after being in the district for a while. And I think after the first year, the new candidate should be evaluated for doing a great job. I'm not against the candidate, and I'd like to make that clear. I think this person hopefully will be an excellent fit. From what I know and from what I've heard, you know, this person is a very good candidate. I just think the salary is just slightly too high.
Thank you, Ms. Cobden. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Testa.
Thank you. I understand what Ms. Cobden is saying, but essentially, we're looking to put a performance element within a contract. I don't know if we've ever done that with an administrator before. While I like the idea of it, I'm not sure if this is the time we do it. I think if we're going to do it for one, we do it for all when we write contracts. Mr. Henny said, I mean, my interpretation is if we're saying start at X and then next year maybe go to Y, I think I would categorize that as some sort of performance incentive, right?
Depending on how the contract is written, if the contract spells out certain objectives or goals that need to be met to consider, you know, an increase, then perhaps.
Right. So I think I like the idea. I just wouldn't support it at this point because we're kind of doing it on the fly. Thank you.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All not in favor of the amendment?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails.
So now you go back to the original vote on the original motion.
So the original motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
4-1, Ms. Cobden. Motion passes. And lastly, Ms. Ruggieri, do we have any classified appointments?
We do not, but I did not do the professional ones yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
We
okay.
started those.
So
Please.
we have Kaylee Cooper, grade 4 co-taught at Oakland Beach. We have Erin Werchadlo, the pre-K, the kindergarten co-taught at Cedar Hill. Sarah Anderson, the IASE program at Cedar Hill. Anna Marie Gupton, resource at Hoxie and Oakland Beach. Julia DeRezzo, the SES program at Tollgate, special ed. Taylor Beltrami, an EL teacher at Greenwood. Brooke DeCiccio, I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, EL teacher at Cedar Hill. Michaela Canning, a speech language pathologist. Sarah Zane, elementary special educator, co-taught grade 1 at Oakland Beach. Tanya DiMartino, elementary teacher, grade 1 at Sherman. Kristen Sylvia, elementary teacher, grade 3 at Greenwood. Kalandra Sahajian, elementary teacher, grade 1 at Park. And we have one other Title I transitional advocate, Deborah Petaruti. Welcome everyone to Warwick.
Welcome. Wish you a long and happy future in Warwick.
I move
And-
approval. Oh, sorry. Did I
No,
go?
we don't
too
approve
fast?
them. And
Do we approve?
lastly, huh? No,
Do
we
we
don't
approve?
approve.
Don't need
I
to
don't think-
approve.
Yep,
Okay.
they've
Nine
been
more.
appointed.
My bad.
They're appointed. We don't approve. And lastly, classified appointments.
We have
Alicia
none.
said they're on.
And there are none at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. New business. Discussion update, RIDE statewide calendar, Dr. Thornton.
Madam Chair, in your packet, you have a calendar. It's a unified calendar for the state. For years, there's been talk of one calendar for all of Rhode Island. It took a pandemic to actually have it happen, but now we do have a unified calendar, one calendar for all the districts. To summarize some of the big pieces, we all start on August 31st. As you know, we're all formulating plans on what the start may look like. That comes out a little later in this month. I can tell you, I did consult with the union president in terms of a teacher orientation, and we did agree it made sense to have the Friday, August 28th as that building orientation day to figure out how we deal with COVID and move forward. So with August 28th being that back in school building day, we would start August 31. As you can see on the calendar, we have the same winter vacation, February 15th to the 19th, same spring vacation, April 19th through 23. You can see a series of PD days on Mondays. Mondays are the primary days in the calendar where you'll see there is no in-person component for school. And also the big change, snow days. Now, if you think back a couple of years ago, RIDE had asked districts to submit plans for a virtual plan with snow. But at that point in time, RIDE did not approve any plans. They had what I would call a very high, somewhat unrealistic bar as far as what was approved for a virtual day. But now, as you can see in the calendar, if there is snow, we can simply declare a distance learning day. So I think what you're seeing is a sea change. From now on going forward, I don't think you'll see snow days in Rhode Island. We can simply declare a distance learning day and not add on days in June at the end. So that's one byproduct, I think, of this current pandemic. So that's essentially the overview. A couple holidays in here that are statewide. So whether or not we have a local focus on them, they are part of the calendar, and that's a statewide unified calendar, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Madam Chair, I have a question for the superintendent on the calendar.
I'm going to move approval and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Okay.
This time I move approval on the statewide calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, no, discussion, excuse me. Mr.
Thank you.
Test,
Dr. Thornton, on the statewide calendar, those days that are designated as PD by the state, every district has PD days built into their contract. So What are those days for us?
As you'll hear about our plan, which we're submitting to RIDE on Friday, and we actually are talking about it Thursday night in school committee. A quick little peek into that, if I could. We're meeting with many of the AFT districts across Rhode Island. We have 9 districts that have met with both union presidents and superintendents and talking about, commonality around how we open. In terms of the PD day, the Monday, we believe in our AFT plan, the Monday can be a teacher training, teacher PD day. It can be a day where students get some virtual work in, if you will. And also can be a day when we're cleaning schools as well. So the PD, other districts have PD built into the calendar. They could have 184-day school year, 4 PD days. Warwick never really had the luxury of PD days built in this amount. Now we actually get the benefit of baked in PD. So in the past, we're getting subs for different venues, different programs. Now we can bake in a lot of our work on these Mondays.
Good, thank you.
Any other discussion? There being none, I call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous, 5-0. Discussion action, amend Article 1 resolution. There is a resolution that many of us have put forth in the past. It's going around districts once again, and we put ours together. It is to amend the Article 1 resolution in the Rhode Island constitutional rights and principles. And it basically says that education should be a right and not just something that people are entitled to, but I'll read it for the record. Whereas Article 1, entitled Declaration of Certain Constitutional Rights and Principles, was first adopted in 1843. And whereas in 1993, the Massachusetts Supreme Court found that the Commonwealth had a constitutional duty to ensure the education of its children in the public schools. Shortly thereafter, the Massachusetts legislature passed, and then Governor Weld signed into law, the Education Reform Act. Massachusetts also provided an additional $2 billion in school aid over several years. The Reform Act ushered in an era of accountability, and the increase in funding significantly narrowed the achievement gap. Whereas in 1995, the Rhode Island Supreme Court held in a lawsuit brought by Pawtucket and Woonsocket school districts that the Education Clause did not intend to guarantee an equal, adequate, and meaningful education because both at the time Article 12 was adopted and for decades afterward, there was no requirement that public education be provided at all in this state. Whereas in 2014, the Rhode Island Supreme Court reaffirmed their 1995 ruling in a suit again brought by Pawtucket and Woonsocket school districts, but stated that we emphasize that we are deeply concerned by the conditions of the schools in Pawtucket and Woonsocket. And whereas we believe education should be a fundamental right for all Rhode Island residents, and whereas Representative Mary Messier and Senator Harold Metz have introduced 2020 H7575 and 2020 S2711 respective House and Senate resolutions that would amend Article 1 by adding Section 24, right to an adequate education. Public education is a fundamental right of all Rhode Island residents. It shall therefore be the paramount duty of the General Assembly, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and other government agencies and officials who are charged with the educational responsibilities to provide all Rhode Island residents with equal opportunities to receive an education that is adequate and meaningful to permit them to achieve at high levels and to become lifelong learners, productive workers, responsible citizens, and whereas amending Article 1 would make education the paramount duty of the General Assembly and recognize that public education is a fundamental right. Now therefore be it resolved that the Warwick School Committee respectfully requests that the Rhode Island General Assembly pass 2020 H7575 and 2020 S2711 and cause a referendum amending Article 1 to be placed before the voters at the November 3rd, 2020 general election, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be forwarded to every Rhode Island municipality, school committee, state senator, state representative, and the governor. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Madam Chair?
Certainly.
Yeah, so I'm very much in favor of this resolution. I think it's a long time needed, like the right for constitutional right for students. Like for one, it'll be important for recognizing students' rights, especially in regards to like IEPs and regarding that. Also for funding, because then the states will have to give us more funding, and all school districts across the state are struggling to get the funding. Like so, and then now the state will finally what like many people ask, like why is Massachusetts a better have better school districts? One of the big reasons is because education's are right there, but it is not here. So if we implement this, then we could be more like Massachusetts in the right way and have better school districts. So I'm completely in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell, and I echo your thoughts on that.
Madam Chair,
I
if I may-
also agree.
Testa?
thank you.
Excuse me? One at a time.
Yep.
Mr. Testa, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, I support this. This has been a thorn in my side for many years. It was the game changer in Massachusetts, and I'm not saying, I want to take that back. It was the game changer in Mass insofar as it really took the Mass legislature and forced it to get serious about education reform and education funding. And the same can happen here. The other thing, though, concurrent with that was the investment of money and of vision. They set a goal and stuck to it, and they didn't change. In Rhode Island, we tend to set goals, and we're about as patient as a 2-year-old. So when it doesn't work in 2 years, we change it. So this is critical. Every parent I've asked in the course of my term here and even before, if you ask any citizen, is there a constitutional right to an education for your child, they would say yes. Most people have no idea that in this state, twice our Supreme Court said, no, there is nothing. So I can't support this. I can't be in any more support of this. This is long overdue. So I hope maybe we get some movement this year in the General Assembly. Thank you.
As do I. Thank you, Mr. Testa. Would anyone else like to speak on this?
I just wanted to say, I completely agree, and this is a long time coming, and I hope it gets passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ditto.
All in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. 5-0. The rest of the agenda, as most of you know, is contract awards. Many of them renewals. So I'm going to try to move through them rather quickly. And if there are questions or anything, please let us know. Number 3, discussion action, contract award maintenance, elevator maintenance, annual contract renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion? There being none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. Number 4, discussion action, contract award technology, Connect Ed annual contract renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Second, discussion.
Discussion.
I guess this is just a general question. With the new appointment of director of technology, should we wait on any technology contracts and see if he still wants to move forward with those?
Mr. Ferrucci.
I'm not saying specifically for this one. I'm just saying in general.
I'm trying to look quickly to see if there's anything impacting. As we come to each one, if you would just give me a chance to weigh in on it, whether it could be extended or not, rather than trying to answer all those questions right now.
Okay.
That would be the first question to be asked for each one of them. I'll let you know if we can defer it for a month.
Can I just say something on this one in particular? This is my major form of communication to everyone in the community. This is how people know about school committee meetings. If there is anything that went on in each of the buildings. So a lapse in Connect Ed would be harmful, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I understand what Mr. Adams is asking, or Ms. Bonang said. I think most of these, I do have some issues with a couple of them as they come up. Some of these are renewals of systems that we've had for years and years and years. So I think we'll be.
I have prefaced with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has this been moved? No,
Yes.
voted on?
Been moved and
Seconded.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. 5-0. Number 5, discussion action, contract award, elementary, library, Rylink system contract renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Danbrook, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, this is a valuable resource for our library. It allows us to share resources with other libraries across the state, and our librarians really embrace it, as well as our teachers, and our students benefit from it as well.
Thank you. Any questions or issues? There being none, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. 5-0. Discussion action, contract award, food services, food safety inspections, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. It's very understandable on its face. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. 5-0. Number 7, contract award, human resources, employee assistance program, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Ms. Ruggieri, anything?
I just want to say, I think this is a valuable resource that we have for our employees. It's a confidential resource that any employee and their family can use. Especially with COVID, there's a lot of stress and anxiety out there, and I really think this would be a great opportunity for people to be able to get services if they need them. And I ask your approval for renewal.
Thank you. This is an important service. EAP is provided by almost every company in the state. We'll put it up to discussion.
Madam Chair, aren't we legally, or Mr. Hennius, are we legally required to provide this? I thought we were.
I think we are, right?
EAP?
Yeah.
Contractually, you're required to provide it. I'm not sure you're legally required to provide it, Mr. Test. I can look at it, but I know the contract has provisions for it, and I could look it up. I mean, I know it's commonplace throughout, so there may be a regulation or a statute on point.
Yeah, that was my understanding. So, okay,
Could be.
that's fine. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. 5-0. Thank you. Discussion action, contract award administration, annual postage contracts. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a question. So I guess, Mr. Ferrucci, this is for you. Do we actually spend close to $15,000 a year on postage?
Yeah, it'll run anywhere between 13 to 15,000, yes.
And is that because there's some archaic laws that say we have to send stuff that way versus electronically?
I would defer. Most of it is in the, because we have trimmed back significantly what we normally have done, like our payroll checks, W-2s and all that. We've dramatically reduced it. But of course, we've also had increase in pricing. So, you know, the reduction in use is turned into cost price.
That's what a market does.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's a lot of stamps.
It used to be a lot higher back in the day, I'll tell you.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. 5-0. Discussion action, contract award purchasing, annual legal advertising contract. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I'll speak on behalf of Ms. Machado. This is predominantly the legal announcements for the various bids, and with the volume of projects we're doing on the bond stuff, we've got a lot of bidding going on. So we do minimize the announcements as short as we can make it.
Thank you, Mr. Fucci.
Madam Chair, I have one question.
Please.
Mr. Ferrucci, I know we advertise in the journal because I read those, but most of these things, they're all also advertised electronically, right? For all your contractors, there's an electronic world where they go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do announce them and we put them, actually, we don't release the bids. We have contact to contact, so we issue the bids directly to vendors.
Okay.
So that if there is a question raised by one vendor, we'll respond to all vendors, so they're all on the same platform when it comes time to bidding, which is the reason why we don't post the bid someplace and let just everybody grab it, because we're not sure everybody gets all the information.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, I move approval.
Second. Wait, wasn't it already moved and seconded?
I mean, yes, it was. I call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Number 11, discussion action, contract award, secondary, virtual high school program, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. McCaffrey, anything on this?
Yeah, based on past practice, we have 15 seats that we purchased for virtual high school for students who need support with credit retrieval and unique situations that come up.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from the committee?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have one. So, Mr. McCaffrey, this is used during the year?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, is the expectation next year, depending on how this whole back to school thing looks, that we could conceivably need more seats?
Well, this is aside from distance learning.
Okay.
We'll be submitting virtual plans for all scenarios, all three scenarios in the secondary level through the teaching and learning department.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Being none, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It looks like you may have skipped over item number 10.
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Excuse me.
thank you.
Item number 10, discussion action, contract award, secondary, virtual high school, contract award, secondary student assistance program, annual contract renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Ferrucci.
I would defer that to Mr. McCaffrey, but it is a support of students. And it is an annual program that they've been running for a number of years now.
Mr. McCaffrey?
No, I agree with what Mr. Ferrucci has said.
These student assistance counselors work with our students. and they are especially skilled in working with our students who are substance involved, and they do a great job. They also do a lot of education when they can with our families as well as our kids. Any other discussion? Being none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Number 12, discussion action. Contract award, accounting and human resources administration system annual contract renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Ferrucci?
Yes, this is the backbone of our administrative system for predominantly the accounting, purchasing, accounts payable, payroll, HR administration, employee portal, all of our electronic communications. And it's actually less than what we used to pay for the Muni system back years ago, which is one of the reasons why we've gone to Alio. That's our reference for this particular software. It's a critical link to our business office and our HR offices, so we seek your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. Any questions or discussion on this? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Discussion action, contract award, non-public textbooks. I move approval.
Second.
Dr. Cecil, are you with us?
I am.
Oh, yes, of course you are.
This is just the annual, so we can order books for the non-public schools that we're required to do.
Absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You guys have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 14, contract award elementary CICO annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Danbrook.
Yes, this is the annual renewal for a program that supports our PBIS program that we have in every elementary school. It helps school teams track data on behavior so we can provide appropriate support and interventions for those students who need it.
Thank you, Ms. Danbrook. Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Discussion action, number 15, contract award, technology, website quality assurance, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Ferrucci.
My understanding of this particular program is to support access for all users on our website. They do reviews for compliance work. I really don't know the full impact. If this is one that you want the new director to take a look at, I'm not aware that it's a critical decision for July 1st.
Like, to echo that, you can probably wait. You can probably wait a month on this township, but it is important to have a detailed look at it. Essentially, districts more and more are being called out, not being compliant with different modes of folks seeing information on websites. And this company helps you be compliant. It's very complicated, but it wouldn't be harm to have it go back in August.
Okay, let's bring this back to August then. We'll hold it. Number 16, discussion action, contract award, technology, student management system, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Ferrucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one is a critical program. It's the backbone of our student management system. We refer to it as Aspen. If we were to make a shift to a new program, you're talking about 18 months worth of transition, et cetera. we're not in a position to change over at this present time. And the cost is consistent with what we've paid in prior years. So we would seek your approval tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Carucci. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, 5-0. Number 17, discussion action, contract award technology, managed services contract. I move approval.
Second.
This is the Wally contract, is that correct, Mr.?
Yes,
Faruqi?
it is.
Okay, and that needs to be, we should probably hold that for, or just take it maybe for the first 3 months to let our new director get in and get acclimated and see what we need, because it's a matter of whether we hire a position or continue to have Wally do it, I think. Is that true?
That would be one consideration, yes. Just as a backdrop for folks, we had an assistant administrator who left in January, and we ended up bringing in Wally to provide temporary services. And the departing director was the opinion to move forward with a full-time contract. But I think that's something that could be reviewed. I do have Mr. Kevin Russell here from Wally tonight, and I appreciate him coming out to be able to answer any questions. But with the announcement of the new director, I think it's something that could be looked at, and we've done a lot of work, and we have high regard for the Wally company and Mr. Russell himself. We appreciate their efforts. And so I think they would be willing to work with us if you so chose. But I think we need to give the new director at least a couple, 3 months of support, because if we don't approve something tonight, we're going to have 2 vacancies in the department until we can get the new director on board. So if there's any questions, Mr. Russell's here.
Happy to help.
Mr. Russell, I have a question for you.
Please.
I understand that you take care of that end of the business for us. Are you specifically assigned to us?
Yes, I work as not your account executive or your salesperson per se. That would be Mike Nunziata. He's on this call as well, is able to speak up. But my role with Wally Computers, I'm the director of the department that handles the management, the monitoring, the overall support of all of the IT systems that make up Warwick Public Schools. Mm-hmm. So my team is consistent of about 10 engineers that are responsible for 24/7 monitoring and response of all the systems and the upkeep of them.
Okay. And Mr. Nunziata?
He and I are in communication via text messages outside of this. He was on the call originally, but he said that he had gotten bumped off. So I'll speak in his stead at this point. He's your account executive, your main salesperson. So if it comes to a question about purchasing hardware, software, licensing renewals, those kind of things that you would that are done through Wally Computers at times, he is your primary contact for those. But in general, if it's communications on upkeep of the systems, planning for the future, IT budgeting, those kind of things, that's where we had come on in association with Douglas Alexander, and we had weekly meetings with him as well as David Anez to discuss those kind of things. So, and that's what we hope to and look forward to doing with the new director that's coming on board.
So if we have a problem, do we call you, or how does that work?
Yep. So if you have an initial problem with your desktop computer, you would call by calling your support desk. That's the quickest and easiest way. They would look to work on that. If they're not able to help resolve an issue with you, they would escalate that back to Wally's team, that we would be able to take over that issue and work on that. Where my team is in direct response is the overall, a server goes offline, a network switch goes offline, the internet goes down at one or any of the schools. the camera system, for instance. I know that's kind of a hot topic, as that's been problematic of keeping that up and running and active. We take on responsibility of responding to those alerts when those kind of systems go on or off 24/7.
Thank you.
No problem.
Madam Chair, of course, I have questions.
Of course you do.
I have quite a few of them. I'll try to direct them to the person I think they should be directed to, but anybody feel free to answer. Mr. Ferrucci, if I understand it, when Mr. Porter left, right, his position was vacated. So we ended up contracting with Wally to help us with some of those roles and responsibilities that were Mr. Porter's, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what this is too. This is
Yes.
envisioning the future without Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Or that position, I should say. Okay. All right. So having said that, I think a new IT director should have the opportunity to build his team and create the structure that he or she feels is the right thing to do. On the bid, it says less E-rate funding at $63,750. But in the body of the documents, some of the E-rates were anticipated E-rates. So is this a hard number or is this a best guesstimate for what the E-rate discount would be? Do we know?
My understanding of what was being negotiated in the net number, that's the obligation to Warwick Public Schools is the focus.
Okay. Thank you.
And the 111 is in fact reflective of what our current arrangements had been for the last couple of months. Their monthly fee has been just around $8,900 a month. So you do the math on times 12 and it comes out within that number. So that's our fixed obligation, their opportunities on the E-rate reimbursement.
Okay, and Mr. Ferrucci, the question for you, if we had an administrator at say rough number, $75,000 a year position between the salary, the bennies and all that stuff, what's that approach? Is that about $100,000?
The historical was that this particular position, because of the technical expertise you need attached to it, it was in the low 90s. So with fringe benefits, put it in the 115 to 120 range. So there was a slight savings by making this. I think Mr. Alexander was more excited about the 24/7 response team that was in place if a server goes down and those types of things that Mr. Russell had mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Because we relying on one person to be 24/7 or trying to split that responsibility up in the department has tended to prove problematic. So I think that's where his excitement was.
Mr. Russell, you had your hand up.
Yes, just to add on to Mr. Ferrucci's, when talking about the costs and in applying that to one person salary, the things to keep in mind when bringing on a service like Wally's is our services include a team of engineers, responsible for supporting it and maintaining systems, as well as Mr. Ferrucci had said. We bring along tools and solutions that help do that monitoring, alerting, not only of systems being alive and active, but also layers of cybersecurity protection, inventory management, and asset management, and who has those systems that we have brought that weren't parts of when Mr. Porter was part of the services. And I'm not saying that negatively upon him. Chris did an amazing job over his 21-year term with the school system. It's just there's more services that come along with our costs and our fees than just a personnel based type thing.
Right, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ferrucci, and this was a bid. So how many bidders did we have on this? Do you know?
I think it was more of a focus because of our relationship with Wally in previous bidding, that it was a direct contract at the time.
Okay. Mr. Russell, would part of Wally's services touch at all the copiers? Because aren't those all integrated into our network system or a network? Forgive me, I'm not a very big tech guy, so.
Well, I absolutely, I can help answer that. So we do help with some of the response and the remediation and fixing overall printer issues that someone like yourself may be having on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to the actual physical fixing of the printers, that's a different contract that you have with a different provider, as well as the consumables.
Right.
You know, for those systems.
Yeah, so, and again, Tony, I guess this is, I'm sorry, Mr. Ferrucci, this is for you. With my concern is where Wally, what I wouldn't want to see happen is you have a situation where Wally does this with the printers as per what Mr. Russell said, and having CBS Xerox kind of say, well, no, that's theirs, that's not ours. You know what I mean?
I can tell you that I am not aware of any collisions that haven't been reconciled. I think that the teams that have in place understand where demarcation points are and the hardware support by the Xerox company reps. But I haven't heard of any negative relationship issues where is it in the file server and whose responsibility, or is it in the cabling systems? So, I mean, it's Warwick Public Schools, it would be our service provider, and then it's our hardware support folks. So I have not heard of a negative relationship issue in the 3 years that we've had Xerox in. So I get your point. I think they work well together.
Okay. Mr. Russell, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm talking with Mr. Nunziata via text message. Something that hasn't been brought up as part of the E-rate proposal that's up for in the works as well. Part of that proposal in the relationship with Wally is to include an actual physical person on site 5 days a week. So that would be help managing some of the systems. So
that would be not per school, obviously, but we'd have one person assigned to Warwick Public Schools, and they could troubleshoot in various locations.
Correct. So you can't always replace a physical presence when it comes to some aspects. So that was the idea for putting that into the proposal, is getting a physical person, to take over the Mr. Porter's role, as well as expand on the overall services for getting more of a help desk service after hours, the 24/7 monitoring, alerting, and response, the cybersecurity levels, asset management, and tracking in those such.
Okay. And then I'm almost done, I promise.
Take your time. I'm here. I got all the time.
The response times for what are determined critical or priority issues or so is there a mutually agreed to definition of what is critical, what is priority? Because you've got, I don't know how many people in the district, 900 teachers, a lot of people. So what I maybe consider critical is not really critical. You know what I mean? So do you ever come across those situations where one person's assisting and where there's a little blurriness there?
Absolutely. And one thing, we do start off working on what is set as your response times and your criticality levels, with what you've set internally within your team and your IT department. That's one thing we worked with Mr. Alexander on when we were doing our onboardings. On top of that, Wally has the position for our clients that we don't define what is a critical or an emergency issue for our clients. We rely on our clients to tell us what is emergency for them, and we react accordingly. We have a 1 hour response time from any type of notification that we get is of a critical issue, 24/7.
Thank you. And last question I have, and this is towards the end of your proposal. It's page 19, and it just lists some. I apologize, my copy is bad, but some of says MWS time and materials labor rates. So there's one example of business hours on-site response non-critical tech dispatch rate. So whatever, $150 an hour. What's an example where that would be triggered?
For a standard business hour, two things to consider here. That if we do the E-rate proposal and we get awarded that funding, or the school system gets awarded that funding, there would probably be little to no chance that something like that would happen. Is that you'd have someone physically on site to handle those kind of responses. Outside of that, for our normal kind of managed service clients that we don't have a physical person on site and present, it's if there's an issue that we've tried working on remotely, we get to a point where we do need to have a physical presence. We talk to our clients and let them know that we need to send an engineer on site. Once you agree, then that's where that hourly rate would come into play.
So, all right. So if I understand, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope. So a couple things to add on to that. We don't charge for travel to and from our clients. It's only a billable hour for physically on-site working on the issue. And the reason we don't include that in most of our clients' agreements is because we have a very high success rate of being able to resolve issues remotely without having to escalate to an on-site presence. It's a 97% close rate, actually.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to understand, when you say the E-rate, did I understand you correctly that the E-rate kind of mitigates some of this? Is that how I understood, or did I just not understand?
No, yes. So the E-rate bid that we help submit on behalf of Warwick does include the typical services that we're doing now already for the Warwick Public School systems, and we're expanding on that by adding a physical person on site 5 days a week on top of that. So, and the idea is that person would help with any of those escalations that need, as well as some of the day-to-day services, movement of desktops and, the crawling under the desks and the kind of things that, need that hands-on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell. I've asked all my questions. Thank you.
I'm happy
If I
to.
may, Madam Chair, can I ask one question to Mr. Russell? Because I just want a little clarity on the E-rate piece that you're just mentioning. Is there any time-sensitive or time-critical issue if the school committee made a commitment to your organization for the next 3 months while we onboard the new director, get him up to speed what the services are, et cetera?
No, absolutely not. We don't have any, we don't work by any contracts at all. So, our agreement are totally based on month to month. So we're more than happy to keep moving forward with over the next 3 months. And obviously our hope would be to work with your new director and prove ourselves that, we're a great member of that team.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the committee who has any comments or questions with regard to this contract and the work that they do? There being none, I would like to amend my original motion to authorize them for 3 months until such time that our new director can make a decision about what direction he would like to go in.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Now, the only question I would have, Madam Chair, is a start date. I don't know.
Well, no, it's not a start date. They would continue. They work for us now, so they're not stopping. We can't have them stop.
Oh, okay, I understood. Gotcha. Thank you.
This is a renewal, so we'll just have them continue from the last contract. There being no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Russell, and thank you to your colleague.
No problem. I think there's a couple more things on the docket for this evening that I may be a part of, so I'll hold on. But thank you for having me.
Thank you. Number 18, discussion action, authorized bond funding expenditures. A, contract, asbestos abatement design services, 5 elementary schools. I move approval.
Second.
All
I'd
in
like
favor?
to, I'd like to clarify one thing, Madam Chair.
Yeah, first.
This is for this year, not for next year. If you notice on the proposal, it's the third revision. I had to go back and forth with the architect to get it correct. So it's for this year, not for 2021.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Contract award, ADA upgrade design services, 7 school buildings. Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Gottsberg, anything?
No, this is for next summer. This is for the work going on next summer.
Thank you. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. C, contract award re-roofing design services, 4 school buildings. Move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Again, this is for next summer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Item D, change order, fire alarm, Lippit. I move approval.
Second.
This change order is for items that were requested by the fire alarm superintendent of the Warwick Fire Department. So they have to be done.
And this is for this year?
This is for this year. This is the project going on right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. And lastly, E, change order fire alarm Welk. I move approval.
Second.
Mr. Gottsberg,
Again, this is a request. This is for an ongoing project at Welk. The fire alarm superintendent requested these changes to be made.
thank you. Any discussion from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 19, discussion action, building committee request for summer change order procedure. I move approval. Mr. Gottsberg. Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
As in previous years, starting in 2016, when I came on, we have requested this from the committee, from the building committee and the school committee. We have put limits on the top end of any request at 8%. Lippit re-roofing we don't expect any changes there, so we only put it at 1.75%. Happy to answer any questions. We've included the tracking document, the reporting document with samples on it, and would be happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, not so much a question as just a comment. I think this is good. As Mr. Gottsberg said, we've done it before. We need to give them some latitude to make these on-the-spot decisions.
No problem.
And Mr. Frucci, I would also, well, Mr. Frucci and Mr. Gottsberg, I would also say that we really need to stop and take stock of what exactly we've accomplished in the last 3 or 4 years from an infrastructure point of view.
Mr. Testa, may I stop you for a moment?
Sure.
What makes you think that we haven't thought about that?
Oh, no, I'm not chastising anybody. I'm just stating it, like we should realize the state of the infrastructure from 5 years ago to what we've done or what we have in progress now. I think it's good stuff. And Mr. Frucci and I had a conversation about making sure we updated all that on the website for the public to see, because, you know, roofs are boring and asbestos is boring, but it's critical. And I'm glad to see that we're taking the infrastructure, you know, by the horns and taking our buildings and making them better. So that's all.
It's transformative, and the people that we have to thank for that are some excellent employees and committees, and certainly Mr. Gottsberg, Mr. Oliver, Mr. Ferrucci. We thank you, and anybody that I missed. And thank you very much for all your due diligence. And David, I really don't think roofs and asbestos are boring. I actually like roofs,
They just don't have any
but they do. Don't
snaz.
say
They're
it.
only
They
boring
do.
when they don't leak.
Yeah, when they leak, they're not boring.
I don't think they're ever boring, depending on them. It's very interesting. But anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You guys have it 5-0. Thank you all. Number 20, discussion action contract award curriculum, Agile Minds, professional development and materials. Miss Amelot.
Good evening. Sorry, the storm today knocked out my entire internet, so the lightning strike, so in my neighborhood. So I am calling in by phone, and I don't have access to my computer right now. So this is for we are rolling up for the high school our math program. So we began last year at Algebra 1. We're continuing on with geometry next year, and we will look to then finally roll up with Algebra 2 next year. So this is for our students to have workbooks, which will be essential next year, so they can't share copies. It actually reduces copies that teachers need to make and provides the support for our teachers to move forward in the math adoption that needs to happen by 2023. So we are well on track in this in Warwick.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you. Moving along, Ms. Amelot, number 21, contract award curriculum, e-textbooks.
This is for STEM Scopes, which is a continuation of a curriculum that the teachers have worked with for several years. And again, I can't stress enough, next year, thinking distance learning, it would be essential for students and teachers to have access to this text. E-text, sorry.
E-text, thank you. At this time, I move approval on curriculum e-textbooks.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I have one question for Ms. Amelot.
Yes.
On the curriculums that these e-textbooks are for, is this a green curriculum?
So this is science right now, and STEM Scopes is not rated. There's only actually one rated program right now. Science is behind getting rated, and we don't need to have a green curriculum for 2025. And not that we shouldn't be aware of what we're using. It's just that there haven't been many reviewed. And if we look at the cycle of ELA and math, as I've shared out in Achievement Subcommittee, often it was how the teacher's text was written and not so much the material themselves. And so publishers worked to rewrite those to make them more student friendly and increase alignment. So we're just seeing that round happen in science. It's just the beginning. And so STEM Scopes is not a rated program because there are no high school rated programs at this time to select from, but we will continue to stay on top of that, Mr. Testa.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Time I move approval.
Second.
Actually, we did, didn't we? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Number 22, discussion action contract award curriculum, GEMSNet professional development materials. I move approval.
Second.
Ms. Amelot?
This is for our continuation of partnership with GEMSNet. And I just wanted to let you know, as we move forward to our professional development days, GEMSNet is switching all of their days to align with the state calendar and work on looking to support teachers in that way. So that will even, going forward, relieve the burden of getting subs for our teachers to attend. So they have been continuing to partner with us and think about how we change in the different modalities. So I appreciate the support of continuing to expand our science curriculum at Warwick, and math and science are heavily on my docket here today, and just continuation of our vision of moving more STEM, improving STEM education in Warwick.
It's very well received. Are there any questions, comments?
I have one question, Madam Chair, and this would involve Ms. Amelot and Mr. Ferrucci. Ms. Amelot, since GEMSNet has aligned their PD days with the ones in the calendar, resulting in no need for substitutes. Could you just get together with Mr. Ferrucci? I'm curious to know how much money that saves us. Just curious. I don't need to know
Depends
now.
on how many substitutes we can get, Mr. Testa.
Yeah, right. So just a rough dollar amount, because I'm, you know, that's kind of a testament to GEMSNet and the business, that the way they operate. So, and I'm appreciative of that. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chester, without having access to my computer right now, I apologize. I'm going to say it's about $15,000 this year that we'd be saving next year. We still have to work out some details about when the teachers would take those trainings to make sure they aligned with what was happening in their buildings. But it would be between $15,000 and $20,000.
Okay, good enough for me. Thank you.
I apologize. I can't give you an exact number right now without my computer, without my access, so I apologize.
That's fine.
And Mr. Testa, I'm happy we ferreted that out this evening, and that will be factored into Thursday night's discussion.
I think that puts us over the top.
Any further questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
You guys have it, 5-0. 23, discussion action, contract award, Gizmos annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
This, discussion, Ms. Amelot?
Again, this is a renewal for, this allows simulations very similar to what students see on the next generation science assessment, but it also allows them to do learning in the classroom and simulate labs and experiments in a virtual format, which will be very helpful always, but particularly in light of what we're facing next year.
This is great stuff. Are there any questions from the committee or discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Number 24, discussion action, contract award curriculum, iReady professional development and materials. I move approval.
Second.
Second. I think we just did this one, didn't we?
No, we
No?
did.
Okay.
We did Gizmos.
Oh, Gizmo. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Testa, Gizmos.
I can have a good handle on my gizmos.
The names are funny between Seesaw, Pebble Go, Gizmo, STEM Scopes. We've got the names in curriculum, but
Pebble Go. Okay, so anything you'd like to add to iReady, Ms. Amelot?
no, I would like to say while the PD we were offered 21 days of professional learning support from Curriculum Associates this year, and they even were able to offer that in a virtual format for our teachers to really think about how they transition their teaching to an online format, which was very helpful and supportive. So continuing partnering with them really would just, teachers, it was too difficult to learn new programs every year. And so I just thank you for the support. So many teachers were so thankful for these materials, which are consumables. So you'll see this as an item every year as we move forward. But I think many teachers, while it was the first year of implementation and a very strange year at that, were more positive about having these materials. So thank you very much for the support.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Number 25, discussion action, contract award curriculum, Newsela annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Amelot.
This is an online platform that allows text to be leveled for students to read at different level to read at different lifestyle levels to support their knowledge in different content areas. It's used heavily in our science and social studies classrooms, but it is used and English classrooms, but it is available for all our secondary teachers and students.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments, questions on this? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Discussion action, contract award, curriculum, PSAT student registration fees. Ms. Amlot,
So this is for our ninth grade students. We started this 2 years ago, looking at assessing our ninth graders in the PSAT 8-9, which not only gives us a prediction of how they might do on the state test in 10th grade, but it also allows them to link to their Khan Academy to get practice assessments that are geared to support them in an individual manner. So this assessment allows us to have another data point to really think about our overall instruction at the high schools and the secondary schools, but also individual student performance and how we can support them.
is this mandatory for all students?
It is not mandatory for all students. So, wait, we give it to all of our students in ninth grade so we can have that data point. It actually links them into thinking about colleges. I can tell you from families that have reached out, their ninth graders are thinking about, wow, so this is how I get into college. It's kind of a thoughtful, a reminder for so many of our students of why they're here. And I mean that in a very supportive way, that sometimes students need that outside thinking about what do you want to do. And so this is not mandatory. This was an initiative that was brought on by the secondary schools in collaboration with myself to think about how we could have another data point that really that students take seriously and that can provide them information that supports them for when they are taking the mandatory assessments.
Move approval,
Second.
discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Number 27, discussion action, contract award, curriculum, foundations, materials, and supplies for K through 1. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Amlot?
This is just for the continuation when Foundations was an initiative that was started before my tenure with Warwick Public Schools, but when I realized that teachers weren't provided all the materials, I moved to support teachers to, this requires a consumable piece for students every year that we want to make sure, especially under the reopening plan, that we are not putting teachers in a position to have copyright infringements. And so this is a program so this is a consumable, allowing new kits for some expanded classrooms, but as well as a replacement for for consumables that have been used up throughout the year.
Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Number 28, discussion action, contract award, maintenance, fire alarm testing, annual renewal. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Oliver?
I'm requesting your approval on this contract. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Absolutely needed. Are there any questions, comments? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Number 29, discussion action. Move approval on contract award for auto, property, and liability insurance, annual renewal.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Ferrucci, Attorney Henius.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just presented the renewal policy from the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust. It's broken down into 4 different categories. One is for our automobiles, which includes auto physical damage and auto liability, general liability, slips and falls, those types of things, property, fire insurance, etc., and then school board errors and omissions liability. So if there's actions taken in and the district gets sued for your actions, we've got coverage for that. The total premium is $633,000. We have a budget of $640,000. So we're actually in $7,000 below budget. We'll make that adjustment during your budget revision process. The only reason why I mentioned Mr. Henius this evening is that there is one particular clause in the liability section of our coverage that has been identified that might be of concern down the road. And it's on the exclusions, paragraph 14, to any claim or claims relating to infectious diseases or communicable diseases. And we're concerned about how that might be interpreted with regards to actions taken and the potential for something that might happen with the coronavirus. So I would defer to Mr. Henius. I think what we really want to do is just make you aware of limitations this evening. Not as note of alarm, but as you deliberate decisions in the future, we'll talk to this. But that's what we wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yes, Mr. Ferrucci and I discussed this. I think it was either end of last week or beginning of this week. Just to be clear, that's not a new clause. That's a clause that was pre-existing prior to Corona. However, it is a clause in there, and we both felt it was just important that the committee be aware that it's been in there prior. It is in there now. It most likely would apply to any COVID-19 type claims. So it's just something that you need to be aware of.
And the only other thing I'll mention is we are taking progressive actions with regards to anybody using our buildings to make sure that they've got coverages, et cetera, limiting the district's liability and putting it into all of our clauses about being compliant with state guidelines and that they have the onus of meeting those guidelines. So we have taken some actions outside of the district based on these awarenesses that we've been made aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. This morning, Mr. Tester and I were in a meeting with the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and liability was one of the issues that came up. And it appears that they will be writing legislation so that we are not found liable in these sorts of situations. More to come, but that's what they discussed from the governor's office. Any other questions, comments?
Madam Chair, if I may, to Mr. Henius, I think. So as it stands now, there's no coverage. I mean, God forbid schools reopen and you have positive cases and you have a God forbid a death, right? So as the chair mentioned today at the meeting, they did say that they were hoping the federal government would write it into the next stimulus bill, and if not, the state would write something, but we don't know what that something looks like.
Correct.
So this has to be a concern of every single district that's opening up. So, Mr. Ferrucci, when you mentioned something and I hadn't thought of this, building use. If someone uses our building, the cleaning protocol for that, who's responsible? Us, right?
Correct.
So does it make sense that if we're going to have people using our building, should we try to help recoup some costs for that? And if so, how do we go about doing that?
Well, I think it's a great topic. We can bring it back to you in August once we know where we're going. Right now, we are not moving forward with any agreements for internal use of buildings because we don't know what it's going to take to clean the buildings and what the turnover process is. So when we get closer to school and we know what kind of plan is actually going to be rolled forward, we'll probably be back to you with more specifics on that topic.
Okay, thank you.
So all in favor?
Aye.
You guys have it 5-0. Number 30, discussion action, change order technology, managed IT services. I move approval. Mr. Ferrucci.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just some housekeeping cleanup. The school committee approved a contract for Wally for months of the
Heck of a time for that to happen.
Just, he'll be
Are
back.
we frozen? Okay, all right. My internet connection's unstable, and all of a sudden you folks all just froze. But back to what I was mentioning is you had provided a contract for March and April. I mean, excuse me. Yes, March and April. When the pandemic hit, of course, everything kind of fell apart with regards to process. Wally stayed in charge and engaged for May and June. This is a change order to your existing contract purchase order that we have with Wally to cover the months of May and June. The total cost add is $16,698, and so we seek your approval.
Is there any discussion or questions on this motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. In accordance with school committee policy, administration will be presenting those expenses ranging from $1,000 to $4,999 as a consent agenda item. If a school committee member wishes to address any individual item noted, they may do so by referencing the index number of a particular document for an individual item to be removed from the consent agenda and to be addressed separate and individually from this agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like removed from the consent agenda? There being none, I move approval of the consent agenda. It's been seconded, and open it up to discussion. Mr. Ferrucci, is there anything you'd like to say?
Sorry, I had to turn the mic on. No, I think all the documents speak for themselves. It's something that each one of them is something the district does need.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrucci. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Item K, future meetings. Special school committee meeting this Thursday, the day after tomorrow, July 16th, 2020 at 6 p.m. on Zoom. School building subcommittee meeting Tuesday, August 4th, 2020, 7:30 a.m. There will be an achievement subcommittee meeting Wednesday, August 5th, 2020 at 4 p.m. That is also virtual on Zoom. And our monthly school committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, the anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki. That concludes our agenda for this evening. And I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you very much. I hope you continue to have a good and safe summer. Be well, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.